15 years ago, I met a client who thought he had done everything right. He trusted a high school friend, believed he was in a relationship based advisory experience, and felt confident about retirement until the market proved otherwise. Recently, that client passed away, and driving home from his viewing after hugging his children and hearing the relationship meant so much to him, I was reminded why this work can never be just about transactions, performance charts, or products. Today, we're talking about the difference between transactional relationships and ones that are more relationship based, and why that difference matters more today than ever before. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.
Welcome back to Legacy Beyond Wealth. We're glad to have you here on the show once more. I'm Ben George with Rob Shelton, who is founder of Axio Wealth Management. And today's topic, is Rob kind of set up for us there, is one of the most important ones we're going to have on the show. You know, you hear terms like fiduciary, advisor, wealth manager. These are thrown around all the time. But the truth is that not all advisory relationships are the same. And that's important to know. Some are very transactional. Others are deeply relational. So that's what we want to talk about today. And Rob, to begin this, we kind of have to go back 15 years ago, right? Where, it was one of the most challenging financial periods that this country's had.
Yeah, I remember this client came into us for a discovery meeting. And as we sat down and talked with him and his wife, it became really apparent they're in a pretty dire situation. His high school buddy had become a financial advisor, and he trusted him with helping them out, and unfortunately made a lot of really bad decisions, more transactionally based, and planning kind of for like a best case scenario to take place. And then you fast forward 7 years from when he retired, and 2008 hits, and his portfolio dropped by over 50%. And he couldn't afford to take a 50% reduction in income. And that advisor truly believed that the market couldn't ever pull back as far as it did back then in 2008. And unfortunately, to add, more to this story of uncertainty, is that he was also diagnosed at the same time with Parkinson's disease at a larger young age. And so for him, everything was changing financially, emotionally, and personally, and a pretty disrupting time in their lives, to be honest with you. You fast forward from that point in time to now, over 15 years later. So glad we were able to help him out and the track on his life, but it had to be more than just transactions that we're doing for the client. You absolutely have to care deeply for them. And if it's okay to say this, develop a love and a deep, meaningful relationship with clients. That's what really matters.
Yeah, I mean, it is okay to say that. That's what you guys prioritize. And I think that's what separates you from a lot of other advisory firms, and really why we wanted to talk about this today. Because, when you look at these transactional relationships, things might be okay, especially early on, but that's kind of where things really begin to break down, right? They focus on the markets and not focusing on the people and the lives of those people.
Yeah, and you think about it, a lot of times they're thinking about who they represent. Maybe it's the investment firm themselves. And I'll never forget, I was working with one of our staff members, and they were trying to get something accomplished for a client. And they came back and said, Rob, we just can't do what the client needs us to be able to do. The company said that it's not possible. And I had to remind that employee and say, who do we represent? Do we represent some investment firm, or do we represent the client? And when you have that mindset, even though the investment firm was saying they couldn't do it, when we pushed hard enough with them, they were able to do it. And I said, that's where you're at. You got to be an advocate for that client. It's not about the external sources there. The client hires us to be in their shoes. And so, in this situation, the client met with this financial advisor that was a high school friend. They really didn't do any stress testing. They didn't talk about what would happen if the market dropped by 40 or 50%, or if his health changes. And those are types of questions that you should be asking in a relationship-based plan, where you really care for the person and you want to make sure that this plan you're putting together for them survives market crashes, health events, longevity risk, cognitive decline, all of those things. And not that we want to just be pessimistic, but it's about being compassionate. It's making sure that you can still live with dignity no matter what life throws at you.
Yeah, I mean that's important. Very important to kind of remember that. It's not about pessimism, it's about compassion. And most people don't think of it that way, but I know that's kind of where you're coming from. And really that's the huge difference between an advisor who is available, who is there to work with someone, who is truly an advocate versus these other firms that are transactional.
Yeah, and even though they might be available, like we talked about, being an advocate, just like that story we talked about a little bit earlier with one of the employees, and it's so hard because you're getting in that rut of day to day task items that you're doing for a client. It can't be about just seeing tasks in some kind of a task management software and checking off boxes, but going beyond that and seeing it and becoming that advocate for a client. And that really matters, especially when things start to unravel. I mean, with this client, advocacy meant reworking the income plan, helping navigate medical expenses, coordinating with the family members, and being present during moments where decisions were overwhelming. And it's not just about managing investments. It's about protecting the client and their spouse from additional stress during an already painful chapter of their life.
Yeah. And when I think about it, and we talk about this, and hopefully people recognize this that have listened or watched the show, your emphasis on legacy, and obviously that's the title of the show, but we talk about that and the way that you guys approach that. It's about people, right? It's not about these portfolios. I mean, it seems very kind of cliche, but this is the way you practice every day.
It has to be. And, we talk about sitting on the same side of the table as the family and not across from them. And that's really important just to think about that you're on that same side, that you represent them. And for me, you have all these definitions about fiduciary, but when you can develop these relationship based relationships, for lack of a better term, with these clients, boy, that's where fiduciary just becomes natural. It's not forced. It's not something that has to be taught. When you truly do care about someone, you want what is absolutely best for them, even when you put what's best for them above your own needs. And out there in the world today, I find that businesses become more and more transactional every day. And it's getting harder and harder to find where people absolutely care about you. And so, as you think about your own advisor relationship that you have, try to find one that is more based on that relationship versus the transactional one.
Are you ready to unlock the freedom to live your best life? Schedule your no-cost 60-minute discovery meeting with our team today. During this session, we'll take the time to understand your family's story and financial dreams. Together, we'll craft a personalized roadmap designed to help you achieve your goals. Let's explore how we can unlock the freedom for you and your family to thrive. Just click the link in the description of today's show to get started.
That I think about some of the businesses that I've even thought about, and not advisor business, but just businesses in general that have been traditionally very people based. It seems like they've even become more transactional. It's just kind of across the board right now. It's kind of the world we live in, which is why it is refreshing to still find businesses and companies that do care about the people as much. Because, when you talk about legacy, Rob, you're not talking about, hey, just what are you leaving behind financially? I think that's what comes to mind right away when you think of your legacy. But it's about how people were cared for along the way, isn't it?
It is. And I'm thinking back a little bit here as I was standing in that reception line, getting ready to approach. The two sons were on one side of the casket and the wife on the other side. And the first son, we didn't really have much of a relationship with. We maybe met him 2 or 3 times, and I was expecting him to not even recognize me and getting ready to introduce myself and my wife. But it was interesting. He got up to him and he just kind of pointed his finger at me and he said, you're the one that made me cry. I didn't know if that was a good or a bad thing, but I didn't even have to introduce myself. He said, I was holding it together, losing my dad pretty well until we got the flowers that you sent us. And he said, that's when I lost it. And he said, my dad had talked so highly of you over the years. You guys had developed such a relationship. He truly loved you. And then he gave me this huge hug. And I think that's where you're passing something on more than just money. You're passing on a legacy. And then made your way down the reception line and talking to his wife and her saying, I don't know how we can ever repay you. I mean, these are people that are paying clients, right? But because you've cared for them, you've gone beyond providing so much more value than they've have paid you, that's really where that relationship deepens, and they can feel that care and concern, and that we're there for them no matter what life throws at them.
And you probably viewed that as success, right? I mean, that success to you probably versus what somebody had, an assets under management or what their bank accounts look like that they were able to pass on. That's truly how you probably value success, right?
It absolutely is. I mean, that's why I'm in this industry. That's what drives and motivates me. I mean, I left that with a renewed energy. Every time we have one of those types of experiences with a client, you leave so much more energized, so much more committed to continuing and making that always happen. And so, even this morning in our employee morning meeting, reiterating that to our staff so they could be able to feel of that experience and understand how they made a big difference in that client's life as well. I mean, that's what is the very fiber at Axio, is being there. Yes, benchmarks and investment performance and return and risk management and wills and trust and tax planning, all those are really important, but only to the point to where you're really making a difference in that client's life, that you care so much about them to make all those other parts function. That's really what the fiber of true wealth management is for me.
Yeah, and that stewardship is really at the heart of relationship-based wealth management. It's not about transactions, and that's why we wanted to dive into this. And I appreciate you sharing that client story with us as well, Rob. It kind of helps paint that picture a little bit clearer for us. And if you have questions, log on AxioWM.com. You can schedule a discovery call, and for anyone that is wanting to maybe learn more, Rob, about Axio and make sure they're a good fit and really have goals that align with what you're trying to help families with. What happens during those initial conversations?
Oh, it's where we really get to know people. And I just, I love that, because you get to dive deep into it. We'll go into 7 different key areas of someone's life, but the assets is only one of those 7 areas. But getting to know the relationships that are most important to them, their goals, and what does it mean to live their best life. Those are types of things we want to dive into, their expectations, the relationships they have with their other professionals, their values, their interests. I mean, just getting to know them to where we can find a way to be able to care for them and help them live their best life and unlock that financial freedom is so critical.
Yeah, you can get in touch. All the contact info is in the show description as well of this episode. But we appreciate you watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already to Legacy Beyond Wealth. We'll have another video coming soon. Rob, take care. Have a good week.
Thanks.